forward with that same song in a different starting line each week that goes with our message, you can each join us. The children will love that.
Thank you, Cyndi, for the rousing opening, and thank you for the youth Sunday school classes. It was delightful to experience. Welcome, everyone. Good to have you here. If you're joining us remotely, good to have you in that way. Whether you're near or far, whether you're watching it now, whether you're watching it later, please use this time to experience our time together, to lift our eyes towards the Lord, and to just have it be a time of worship. Ed's message, the theme of today, the first Sunday of Advent, really ignited my imagination, and this idea of Old Testament prophecy foretelling the coming of Christ, the birth of Christ, the life of Christ, his ministry, his death, his resurrection, and it fills me with hope for the future. It encourages me. I am blessed by the prophecy and its fulfillment because it points to this theme that occurs over and over again throughout the Bible, which is God says he's going to do something, and he does it. And that should give each one of us encouragement, because God makes promises to us, these promises that he will never forsake us, that he will be with us, that he will give us strength when we have no strength of our own. And I am just greatly encouraged by these words and a promise for the future with the return of his son Jesus to finish what is unfinished. And there is a particular piece of scripture that Ed will be reading, and I'm not going to read it. I don't want to steal anyone's thunder today, but it's from the book of Micah, chapter 5. What I would like to read is the revelation of the book of Micah, chapter 5, verses 2 through 5. And what I'd like to share is a short passage from the book of Luke, chapter 2, verses 1 through 5. It's got the heading, The Birth of Jesus. And it begins with, in those days, Caesar Augustus issued a decree that a census should be taken of the entire Roman world. And this was the first census that took place while Quirinius was governor of Syria. And everyone went to their own town to register. So Joseph also went up from the town of Nazareth. Jesus was with him. Also went up from the town of Nazareth in Galilee to Judea, to Bethlehem, the town of David, because he belonged to the house and line of David. He went there to register with Mary, who was pledged to be married to him and was expecting a child. And I'd also like to read from the book of John, chapter 1, the opening of the book of John. It's a scripture that I return to very often because it is a reminder that Jesus wasn't a newcomer to the equation. He wasn't somebody that just popped onto the scene. He wasn't God, like, hey, I'm here now. It's titled, The Word Became Flesh. In the beginning was the Word, and they're talking about Jesus. And the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was with God in the beginning. Through him all things were made. Without him nothing was made that has been made. In him was life, and that life was the light of all mankind. So, with God's promises in mind, his fulfillment of the things that he says he's going to do, the promises that he makes, the encouragement that he gives us, I invite you to a time of worship. I invite you to do as is shared in Psalms, the book of Psalms, chapter 55, verse 22, to cast your cares on the Lord, and he will sustain you. He will never let the righteous be shaken. I invite you now to cast your burdens, to cast your weight, your earthly weight on the Lord, and be sustained by him as we spend this time together. Let us pray. Heavenly Father, thank you so much for this time together, this time to share, this time to open our hearts, our spirits, our minds to you, to be in your presence and to just receive you fully, to share with one another, to be encouraged by one another, to feed one another spiritually, and to be to receive your goodness in this time, and to take that filling that filling meal, if you will, and to take that when we leave here as an opportunity to share with others, to share a smile, to share a hug, to share a word of encouragement, a note, a friendly smile. Heavenly Father, thank you so much for your promises and always keeping them. We love you. Amen. Cyndi and whoever she decides to bring along. If anyone.
We're going to turn to the light blue and sing 172 to start with. The next one we're actually going to sing is the 171. But we're going to start with this one, 172.
Now a time of announcements.
Good morning. I have another announcement from the Advent Committee. Every week we're going to just give you updates. As announced last week, the ornament making is a big part of Advent this year. The entryway tree in the back of the church is for the ornaments you voluntarily make as a family or with friends. As you come in each Sunday, you're invited to place those ornaments on the tree in the back. Last week, Paula had kits she put together for families to make the scrolls, which represented this week's theme, and angels, which will represent next week's theme, to place on the tree in the back. Each week, and as you saw this morning, each week the Sunday school classes will also be making ornaments, and they will be bringing them up and singing every morning and putting them on the tree in the front. Next Sunday after church, there'll be an ornament making in the fellowship hall, and everyone is invited to stay. And those ornaments will also be put on the tree in the front here, and we're going to have the opportunity to make some more scrolls, angels, and stables. And is there another one? And there are others than that? Okay. And we will be providing a light lunch of soup and rolls and bread for those who would like to stay after church and participate in that activity. Paul is also looking for materials for that. And I have, it's not that many. She needs twine or ribbon, Christmas colors, yellow or glittery, felt or craft foam, white, cream, tan, or brown, any Christmas fabric. She's still wanting any Christmas fabric, is important. Pipe cleaners, Christmas colors or glittery, tacky glue, hot glue guns with glue sticks. If anybody has hole punches, different size stars. And if you can supply any of these items or have any questions, you can contact Paula. If you don't have her contact information, feel free to contact me, and I can get the message to Paula. She was going to put it in the bulletin, but there is a small little bit of blurb in the bulletin about lunch after church and ornament making next week. In addition to that, one more thing not related to ornaments, we want to let you know that to help with our congregation's giving this Christmas season, we'll be collecting the non-perishable food items for the local food pantries, which you can place under the tree at any time when you bring those in. And when the Advent Committee also thought, instead of or in addition to a food donation, people could donate gift cards, grocery gift cards, gas gift cards, and those can be brought to the food pantry. And some of them may even stay here in our congregation for people who may be in need here. If you do donate a gift card, we'll have a basket up here that you can place the gift cards in next week. And finally, Christmas devotional books have been purchased for all families of the church. And members of the Advent Committee will be handing those out at the entrances after church. So I hope you all can take one per family and enjoy that throughout Advent.
Are there any other announcements? If there are none, let's turn to a time of prayer. Praise.
I'd ask that you be in prayer this week for Mary Lou Morris, and she's been experiencing declining health, and the family is asking for special prayer for her at this time as she's weakened and continuing to go down with her strength. So continue to remember their family as well.
our congregation to continue to lift up people that are dealing with COVID. Sheila Zayre's finally feeling without a fever and a little better, but it's been a very kind of a hard struggle at home. And Jeff Hershey told me this morning that Brenda's dealing with that right now, but she's doing a little better. But please, as this continues to go forward for right now, I just ask that we continue to hold up people.
Jan back here. Jan back here. A fellow co-worker of mine passed away this week, and I'd like to ask prayer for her family. Her name is Connie Getman.
Hello, Gary Zaire. I just wanted to, I have praise or blessing for a young gentleman this morning. We were coming up to Boonville this morning and had breakfast at Dunkin' Donuts. This young gentleman opened the door for us as we were coming in, and he had us, or he actually made us, I guess, eat or get our food before we started, or before he got his. And he paid for our breakfast. And on top of that, he came over to our table and gave us $40 to go and to use for whatever we want to, which we're donating back to the church. But I would like to go ahead and ask for prayer for this gentleman, because that doesn't happen every day. It was quite a blessing for us.
Should have asked for prayer for this when I had the mic the first time. Ask you to pray for my mom on Wednesday. Sherry Kiesacker, she'll be having surgery in Rochester. So keep her in your prayers, please. Also, just Ray, when they come up to do the reading, maybe drop the mic a little bit for them.
Any other prayers? Praises?
I apologize, I should have done this the first time. But as you know, in the prayer chain that came through this week, that Joshua Streeter did pass away. His service is Thursday in Lowville at the funeral home. But I just wanted to please pray for this family and the friends and his little girl, Kaylee. It's extremely difficult. Jeff and I had Joshua in our daycare, and he was like our little baby. And so death hits us all in different ways at different times, and there's been a lot of ways that death has impacted our congregation lately. But please continue to pray for all of the people involved with Joshua, in Jesus' name. Thanks. Yeah. So used to praying.
Any others? Let's pray together. Heavenly Father, we thank you so much for the wonderful gifts, the talents, the things that are shared from the many parts that make up our church. And we thank you also for the Advent Committee, for the work they're doing at this time. And we ask your blessing on their different ministries that are being expressed through their work, from the decorations that give us just a glimpse of what heaven will be like, the beauty, the wonder, the awe of it, just to have a little glimpse of that light and that goodness this time, and the ministry through the food pantry donations, through the gift card program, and through the devotional booklets that help us keep our eyes, our hearts, and our minds, our spirits turned toward you at this time. And we ask your prayer for Mary Lou Morse this time as she struggles with health and struggles with strength. We just ask that she would, and her family that is supporting her, just to be strengthened by you, to be comforted by you at this time when there are worries, when there are struggles, to just, that they would just know that you are near. We ask your blessing, your healing, for those who are struggling with COVID, whether they are severely affected by COVID and is causing concerns for their health in more serious ways, whether it's their mental health and the struggle of isolation as they deal with that. And we ask your comfort during this time for the population as we continue to worry about it, and to be comforted knowing that you are in control, God. We ask your blessing for the family of Penny Getman as her friends, her family, her former co-workers, as they deal with loss, as they deal with the emptiness, as they deal with the void. And I just pray that they would know that you are near, that you are a shoulder that they can lean on at this time, trying to figure out how do we go on, how do we deal with this in a way that makes sense. We ask your blessing on a young gentleman that blessed Robin and Gary this morning. Just that wonderful gift, that wonderful just expression of love that occurred in what would be an otherwise just normal morning, just to have you be present in all of that. What a gift. We just ask your blessing on the young man. We ask your blessing on Sherry, Ed's mom, at this time. And we also ask your blessing for the family of Josh Streeter as they deal with loss, as they deal with the struggle, the friends, the family, the acquaintances that are trying to make sense of this thing that doesn't make sense. That they would be comforted by your presence at this time. Holy God, there are many more concerns, many more cares and struggles that went unspoken, both near and far. We ask your blessing on those people, that they would cast their struggles on you, Lord. They don't have to carry them alone, that you can be near, that you can be with them. And whether it's healing, whether it's a new perspective, whether it's loneliness, that they would experience you at this time. All of this we ask in your holy name. Amen. Now a reading and lighting of the candle by Greta and Logan.
Isaiah 9:6-7. For to us a child is born, to us a son is given, and the government will be on his shoulders. And he will be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. Of the greatness of his government and peace there will be no end. He will reign on David's throne and over his kingdom, establishing and upholding it with justice and righteousness from that time on and forever. The zeal of the Lord Almighty will accomplish this.
But you, Bethlehem Ephrathah, though you are small among the clans of Judah, out of you will come for me one who will be ruler over Israel, whose origins are from of old, from ancient times.
Well done. Now, time for the morning offering. Most holy God, we are so blessed to be able to return a portion of what is already yours back to you to further your kingdom, you, the ultimate giver. Amen. Rachel will share some special music.
Morning. 1,000 times I've failed, still your mercy remains. And should I stumble again, still I'm caught in your grace, everlasting. Your light will shine when all else fades, never ending. Your glory goes beyond all fame. Your will above all else, my purpose remains, the art of losing myself in bringing you praise, everlasting. Your light will shine when all else fades, never ending. Your glory goes beyond all fame. In my heart and my soul, Lord, I give you control. Consume me from the inside out. let justice and praise become my embrace, to love you from the inside out. Everlasting, your light will shine when all else fades, never ending. Your glory goes beyond all fame, and the cry of my heart is to bring you praise from the inside out. Lord, my soul cries out. Everlasting, your light will shine when all else fades, never ending. Your glory goes beyond all fame, and the cry of my heart is to bring you praise from the inside out. Lord, my soul cries out. Thank you.
Well, thank you to everyone that's taken part this morning. And I also, again, extend a welcome to everyone during this first exciting Sunday of Advent as we begin something very special. And again, I say thank you to the Advent planning team for all of their efforts and everything that they've done in putting things together. And here's a little promo to the side note here. This is a great time of year to invite others to join you for worship here at church. And also it's a great time then for those in the church family, when you see somebody that you might not see every Sunday, just to extend a welcome and a greeting to them and let them know that you care about them. Also, here's a little thought. Some of you are just about ready to fly the coop and go south. And so don't forget about your church family here. Continue to pray for the church family because they're going to continue to go on. So just a little side thought for you. But Advent is here. And surprisingly, it's come on us very quickly. But it is simply something that means coming. Simply means arriving. And for people, it's appropriate, over the years, have appropriately attached the Christmas story and this time of Advent to what we know as being Jesus and the Messiah and the Emmanuel name and all those different things that we coin around Jesus. And so Advent has been attached to that. I think it's important for us to know that nowhere in the Bible, nowhere did the disciples in any way give direction to say you have to do Advent. There was nothing that said this is something that you have to do every year. But rather it's an opportunity for each of us as Christians to annually relive and be reminded of something that was really a miracle. And something that we can take with us and the arrival of the best gift that we've ever been given. And that's Jesus. So it's something more than just this good feeling. Advent brings us a good feeling, but it's so much more than just feeling good. Advent really is about more than just a quaint story from a couple thousand years ago. It's really about the message of what it is all about, the culminating thing, which we know as being Jesus being born. And it's also our chance to get closer to him. So my thought for each of us, no matter if you're watching online or if you're going south or you're staying here, is that we continue to gain a focus of what this is really about. And that we are refreshed and hopefully renewed in hearing this story again and hearing about what Advent really means to us personally and knowing that it's really about Jesus. And borrowing from last week's message a little bit, that during the brief weeks ahead, that we be reminded that it's about the receiving of a gift from the greatest of all time. And that goes along with the message from last week, that we're giving praise to the fact that we get the gift from the greatest of all time, who was there at the very beginning. Thank you, Ray, for pointing that out again. So as we sing and we celebrate, this is all just a reminder of something that took place many years ago, but it is so relevant and real for us today. So as noted, there's going to be weekly themes that we go with. And on the front of your bulletin, we have the overall theme, which is the odd wonder of Christmas. So that's our overall theme. And each week we're going to have these weekly themes. if you ever want to, you can come to the table up front. If you forget what they might be, each of these little candles have the weekly themes on them, so you can read them carefully. And thank you for the Advent team for putting those together. And they're not real candles. We don't have to worry about anybody catching fire or anything like that. But take a moment and read those and be reminded about what our weekly themes are. So this week, our theme is the awe and wonder of the prophetic message. Next week, it's going to be the awe and wonder of the heavenly messengers, which we know as being angels. And then it's the awe and wonder of Mary and Joseph and the responsibility that they would have. And then week 4, which would seemingly make sense, it's the awe and wonder of the miraculous birth of Jesus. And then what happens this year is that Christmas is on Saturday, which leaves us with the day after. And what do you do with that day after to make it somehow connected and important? So on that Sunday, it's going to be the awe and wonder of what and who Jesus would become. And we're not just going to forget in the celebration of Christmas that Jesus was there for a purpose. And so it'll be looking ahead to what he would become. As noted, on the way out of church today, there are these little devotional books that are available to you. And encourage you as a family to take one, or individuals to take one. And beginning December 1st, there's a devotion for each of the days leading up to the miraculous birth that we will celebrate. But as you read December 1, and here's a little spoiler alert, I'm going to tell you about it. And it's talking about preparing the way. And so it's referencing something that somebody that was also prophetically talked about in the Old Testament. Talking about John the Baptist, who would come and prepare the way for Jesus. I'm going to read you the very first little line there. It says, what John the Baptist did for Israel, Advent can do for us. Don't let Christmas find you unprepared. I mean spiritually unprepared. Its joy and impact will be so much greater if we're ready. So I'd encourage us all to consider how we can be ready in a bigger way if we embrace this whole thing called Advent. I'm going to go now and read a couple verses out of the Old Testament. And I did remember my glasses today so I can read a little bit more clearly. And I'm going to go to a book, the last book of the Old Testament, Malachi. We don't read too much out of Malachi, but there is a verse that references a person that's going to come and prepare. The first verse of chapter 3 says this, "See, I will send my messenger, who will prepare the way before me." That messenger was John the Baptist, who came and prepared the way for Jesus. But then it goes on here, it says this, "Then suddenly the Lord you are seeking will come to his temple. The messenger of the covenant whom you desire will come, says the Lord Almighty." So, way back in the Malachi book, it's talking about John the Baptist preparing the way, and then it says, and then the messenger is going to be there. The real messenger, which is Jesus. So I think it's important for us to recognize this whole idea of prophetic messages and the promise of what it really meant. And in the devotion, it also says this. If you want to look at this at the bottom of the first devotion, you're going to read, "Build God-centered anticipation, expectancy, and excitement." And then it says, "into your home." So don't just come on Sundays and expect you're going to get it all. But throughout this Advent season, bring excitement, bring anticipation into your home, into your daily lives, as we get closer to this idea of Christmas and celebrating what that really is all about. So don't make it just a one-day-a-week thing. Make it an every day over the week kind of experience for yourself this year. So for literally hundreds of years, people are holding on to these messages. People are holding on to this hope. People are holding on to what they had been told. People are hoping that what they had been told would come to pass in a real way. Words that were spoken by these old prophets, old guys named Isaiah and Micah and Zechariah and Malachi, they were giving words that were pointing forward and giving glimpses, little hints and glimpses as to what possibly was going to come and what it might be possibly like. Well, as with so many things, I question things and ask myself, what would have the people really been thinking during that time? I have to wonder, did the people really believe it? Did they really believe those old men and what they said? Or was it just part of their tradition, part of their religious tradition that they had been taught generation after generation for hundreds of years, that sometime down the road, this person called the Messiah is going to come? Did they really believe it? I have to wonder. Or did they just go through the motions? Did they ever think, it's a good story, but is it really true? But then I had to stop and think, do we really believe? Do we really believe what we now know as another Advent that's going to be coming? We've been told a lot about it, just like those people for hundreds of years held on to hope. Do we really believe it? That's a question each of us has to ask. If you want to go to Isaiah now, chapter 11, and on the front of your bulletins are also these words and verses. These are the theme verses, 11, 1 and 2. I'll let you open your Bibles if you want to get there, or simply look at the front of your bulletin. 1 and 2 says this: a shoot will come up from the stump of Jesse. From his roots a branch will bear fruit. The Spirit of the Lord will rest on him, the Spirit of wisdom and of understanding, the Spirit of counsel and of power, the Spirit of knowledge and of the fear of the Lord. So that's obviously talking about Jesus and foretelling what he will be, what he will represent. And so it's important for us to understand the spirit of wisdom and understanding that only Jesus could have, because he was from the beginning, again, as Ray had shared. And then if we look down at verse 3 and 4, it says this: and he will delight in the fear of the Lord. He will not judge by what he sees with his eyes or decide by what he hears with his ears, but with righteousness he will judge the needy. With justice he will give decisions for the poor of the earth. He will strike the earth with the rod of his mouth. With the breath of his lips he will slay the wicked. You know, when I read that now, and then I read New Testament stuff, after Jesus had come, it makes more sense. When we think about what Jesus really represented and how he touched the lives of other people, when we read those things where it says, he will not judge by what he sees with his eyes or decide by what he hears with his ears, we know that Jesus didn't do that. Jesus embraced other people, not just by what he saw somebody doing, but what their heart was saying, which he only could know. That's the Jesus that was going to be coming. They didn't know it hundreds of years ago during Isaiah's time. They didn't know what to expect. They were just reading these things. We have the advantage because we have the second part of the Bible to read to know what Jesus actually became, what he did. They didn't have that advantage. So they were only hoping on the possibility. Now, going to Isaiah chapter 9, and I think it was Logan that read this part. Thank you, Logan. He read this. Very familiar. We hear this every year. For unto us a child is born, to us a son is given, and the government will be on his shoulders, and he will be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. Possibly the most widely heard prophetic words ever spoken are those. Every single Christmas. And I'm not sure which Christmas cartoon it's on, but I think one of them actually references this in one of the annual things you might see on TV. But the thing is, when it's describing Jesus to come, it's using words that make sense to us now. When it talks about everlasting Father, we understand that what Jesus was all about, the everlasting Father, he was this compassionate individual, describing to other people what God was like, demonstrating what God was like. When it talks about the Prince of Peace, we know that's now some of his very last words. When he's telling his disciples before he ascends into heaven, my peace is with you. Hundreds of years before, saying he's going to be the Prince of that peace. And we know now he spoke that peace into each of the people that would come after him. And then if we go to Micah, and that's a little bit connected to our family since we have a Micah now in our family. Micah is one of those little-known prophets, but he had a similar style to Isaiah. Talked kind of in the similar tone of Isaiah, some of the same kind of words and phrases. But if we go to Micah chapter 5, and thank you, Greta, for reading some of these words. Saying, but you, Bethlehem, Ephrathah, Though you are small among the clans of Judah, out of you will come for me one who will be ruler over Israel. Where was Jesus born? In that little place called Bethlehem. So here, hundreds of years before, this is saying, out of this little small area that's really not known for anything, is going to come the one that's going to be the everlasting Father, the Prince of Peace, the one that will rule. You know, it's simply mind-boggling to me that the words that were spoken would come to be. That's really mind-boggling to me. You know, I personally don't believe that it was just a coincidence that some of these things came about. Now, I do believe that sometimes, we're probably all guilty of it, I'm sure I am, that sometimes we will connect something to Scripture just because it makes it sound good, and we think it could possibly be true. But in this case, I don't believe it was just a coincidence. I think these words were spoken with real relevance to what was coming hundreds of years later. And Ray and I were talking about this before, even if it was a coincidence, even if it was, and I don't believe it was, but even if by some chance it was just a coincidence that they wrote these beautiful lyrics and words to songs that somehow got connected to Jesus later, even if it was a coincidence, we do know this. Jesus was born. We know how he was born. We know that he came from the lineage of David, whether that was a coincidence or not. He did become the good shepherd, which was also described in the Micah chapter 5. He did become that good shepherd. He was that protecting, comforting, leading kind of individual like a shepherd would be. To me, that's a little bit more than just coincidence. And yes, he was willing and did sacrifice himself for us, just like the shepherds would have done for their flocks. Whether it's a coincidence or not, it happened. Jesus was real, and we know that. And he is our peace. Ephesians chapter 2, verse 14, Paul says, "For he," which is Jesus, "is our peace." And we can experience that now, and even though it was spoken to us now thousands of years prior, you know, I think it's important for us to recognize it's so real today, and what became real to them. You know, as I mentioned, hundreds of years before, people were continuing to hold on, looking for that Messiah. For hundreds of years, they were looking for it. And I do remain in awe that they didn't give up. You know, they would have had all reason to give up because some of those people that would have been told this would have been put into captivity, they would have been slaves, all those kind of different things. They would have had all reason just to give up all their hope because it wasn't coming true in their lifetime. But they kept holding on to it. Then if we go to the New Testament, John chapter 4 says this, and it's talking about the woman at the well. She says, "I know that the Messiah is coming. When he comes, he will explain everything to us." So here's this woman who's saying, we've been told the Messiah is coming. She didn't realize she was talking to the Messiah. And Jesus then said, "It's me. I'm him. I'm the one you've been hearing about for hundreds of years." He told that to this lady who was so unexpectedly expecting to see Jesus for sure. And then in John chapter 1, we also read about Andrew, who went and told his brother Peter that they just found the Messiah, the anointed one. Now, I've never really thought about this until this week. The fact is, they weren't holding on to the Christmas story as we know it. They weren't talking about Jesus being born in a manger. I don't know if they never heard it. I don't know what happened. What happened to the shepherds that were running around telling everybody? What about the wise men? Hadn't they heard that story? Because this had to have been when Jesus was about 30 years old, because he's already in his ministry, and he's calling people to follow him. So that's why Andrew and Peter were doing it. And this woman at the well, he was already doing something else. So he's about 30 years old, and yet they didn't know the Christmas story. So I don't know what happened during that time. Maybe some of you can enlighten me on that. But the fact is, irregardless of them knowing the Christmas story, they didn't give up hope looking for the Messiah. They didn't give up, even though they didn't hear what we hear every single year. They hadn't stopped looking. They kept expecting. They kept anticipating. And I think that's something pretty important for us. Jesus was the fulfillment. He was a culmination of all those prophetic things, for sure. And it is, I think, an awe-inspiring kind of promise for us as Christians. You know, the people of old held tightly. They held very tightly to the traditions of the prophets. They held on to those words. They were told those words over and over and over again. And they were looking and they were anticipating, they were desiring that Jesus would come in their lifetime. But the fact is, for hundreds of years, he didn't. For hundreds of years, the people only heard about him and they didn't experience Jesus. It was only after hundreds of years that a certain few experienced Jesus. So today, over 2,000 years later, 200,000 years, that'd be kind of a long time, but 2,000 years later, we live in that same kind of awe and wondering. When's it going to happen? For hundreds of years now, thousands of years now, people have been expecting and looking and anticipating that second advent. And you know, we don't know when it's going to happen. We don't know. We don't know the date. Maybe it will happen during our lifetime. How wonderful would that be? But I have to wonder, will we continue to hold on to that arriving kind of anticipation? How do we encourage others to hold on to that? We know what people did in the ages past. Can we be part of that same kind of feeling going forward? Can we continue to pass on more than just an annual tradition of celebrating Advent? Can we make it part of our everyday life? You know, in the weeks ahead, I hope that we all can be refreshed, kind of like children are during Christmas time, with an awe and wonder that will spark this a newness in us to really want to anticipate what will come. I'm going to borrow again from that devotion that you'll read in the first day. It says, building, strengthening a God-centered anticipation. And I really believe that if we really enter Advent with this Jesus, God-centered anticipation, I think we're going to experiencing it in new ways. So from the prophets from thousands of years ago to what will ever come in the years, possibly today, who knows when, I hope that each of us can do it with anticipation, with an open heart and open minds. I ask Cyndi and Denise and whoever to come up and give us a closing hymn.
Please turn in your light blue hymnals to 170, Joy to the World, and sing out. Stand.
Every heart
sing those very appropriate songs for this first Sunday of Advent. Thank you for joining in worship this morning. And again, next Sunday, the message will be the awe and wonder of the heavenly messengers. I'd encourage you to think of angels this week, thinking about the messengers that came long ago and still come today. And again, a reminder, next Sunday, after church, all are invited for a light soup and bread lunch, and stay to make some ornaments, and those ornaments will be placed in the different trees. Our hope is that you will continue to swell with anticipation and excitement as these trees continue to grow with ornaments as well. So again, thank you. And we just ask that each of you will come again next Sunday, invite others to join us, and if you're online later today, we ask a blessing on you as well. Let's pray. God, I thank you. I thank you for the awe and wonder that hasn't been dismissed in any way over the thousands of years. Thank you for the prophetic messages that did come true with the Messiah, and we know as Jesus. Help us to have the same anticipation and looking forward kind of mentality for what will be next, for the next kind of Advent that will come. God, I ask you to help us to embrace this time of Advent. Help us to understand that it's more than just gifts and Christmas trees. It's a message of your Son's love for each of us. Thank you, Jesus. Amen. Pick up your devotional book on your way out.
He rules the world.